Not often we get good news out of Florida, but a judge has ruled that the congressional maps that were drawn by Ron DeSantis in Florida violate the state's constitution and ordered the Republican-led legislature to create a new map. Now, you may remember that the legislature had put forward a map that favored Republicans in 16 out of 28 districts in 2022, but Governor Ron DeSantis vetoed those maps and instead submitted his own maps, which ultimately resulted in the Republicans winning 20 of 28 seats, which unto itself may have flipped the House to Republican control, because what better way to launch your presidential campaign as a Republican than by showing just how committed to undermining democracy you really are. The ruling will force Republicans to restore Florida's 5th congressional district to give black voters a voice in their own election, which had previously been held by a black Democrat named Al Lawson before Republicans cracked that district to ensure a Republican victory. Judge Marsh wrote in his ruling, plaintiffs have shown that the enacted plan results in the diminishment of black voters' ability to elect their candidate of choice in violation of the Florida Constitution, which of course was by design. And even though Republicans knew this map was unconstitutional, and by the way, will remain largely unconstitutional even after the 5th congressional district is restored, the goal for the GOP is always to grab whatever they can, whenever they can, however fleeting, because it was never about democracy and it was always about power. I asked voting rights attorney Mark Elias, whose law firm represents the plaintiffs in this case, why the 5th congressional district was really the only district in question here, given how egregious this gerrymander was.
Yeah, so look, this is one of these places where, you had to balance the law with being right, which is always good, with speed, the need to remedy wrongs in time for 2024. So the original lawsuit that had been filed challenged a number of districts throughout the state, including some districts that violated another provision of the state constitution that prohibits partisan gerrymandering. But the most egregious thing that everyone agrees happened in the most recent redistricting was around this 5th congressional district, which took a reliable African-American district and really just destroyed it. So the decision was made, strategic litigation decision was made to focus in on that district and to enter into this stipulation that basically stipulates that what happened in that 5th congressional district was that black voters had a diminishment of their opportunity to elect their candidate of choice, which is directly what the state constitution prohibits.
No, I mean, we do have a lot of time between now and the 2024 election. Why kind of give up on those other things when these are virtuous fights to have?
Again, you got to balance, right? You got to balance the what you can get for the next election with what you can get for in the future. And my law firm challenged the 2011 map, okay, which was also violated the state constitution, and that litigation took 6 or 7 years.
Got it. Until
we finally won. But it wasn't until after 2018 that we actually saw a lawful map in Florida. And as the folks involved in litigating this case had to weigh, do you continue fighting on all fronts, understanding that the Republicans will drag this case out for years and years and years, or do you focus in on what is the most concrete and most palpable harm, which is the harm that these black voters faced in the 5th district? So that was what the lawyers involved in this team in this case apparently did.
Now, in spite of this ruling here in Florida by Judge Marsh, Republicans will of course appeal. Florida's Secretary of State has already vowed to fight the ruling all the way up to the state Supreme Court. State Supreme Court, by the way, where 5 of the 7 justices were appointed by Ron DeSantis himself. Whether these justices are able to defer to the law over their partisan allegiances remains to be seen, but at least this decision by a lower court is proof that there are judges in that state who are willing to defer to the letter of the law. Now, importantly, Florida isn't the only state where gerrymanders have contributed to Republicans' slim majority in the House. There have been a raft of lawsuits based on Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, all of which will almost certainly result in new seats for Democrats. Here again is Mark Elias outlining what we can expect in the aftermath of litigation.
Look, I've said this, I've been on record. We're going to get, there's going to be a new majority African-American district in Alabama, in Louisiana, and in Georgia, and I'm feeling more and more bullish now about Florida. In Georgia, that case has been set for trial this fall, and I expect that after that trial, you will once again, you'll have a state that will have found to have violated the Voting Rights Act, Section 2, and there will be a new African-American opportunity district in the Atlanta area.
And finally, what about Texas? What's the progress on that map?
Everything's bigger in Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. And And because it's bigger, it's more complicated. So there's just a lot more seats at issue in Texas. There are the possibility of creating new Black opportunity districts and new Hispanic opportunity districts. So that case is still lagging a little bit further behind time-wise. Hopefully that case will get resolved end of the year in time for 2024. But I would put it behind Alabama and Louisiana and Georgia and now Florida.
So what are we looking at in total in terms of new Black opportunity districts across, they're mostly collected in the South, so across these states?
Yeah, so I think one in Alabama, one in Louisiana, one in Georgia. Florida is an additional one, although it's really the restoration of one. So it's a new one, but it never should have been done away with. So that's 4. And then in South Carolina, a case we haven't talked about that's going before the Supreme Court under a different theory, a racial gerrymandering theory, there may be one there. And then Texas, we could be seeing 3 to 5.
Okay. And I mean, that's enough. Based on the fact that the margin in the House right now is just 5 seats, that is enough to more than flip that margin just on violations of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act alone. And look, on its face, this is great because we're rectifying blatant wrongs. But think about what this actually meant in practice. It means that we are currently contending with a Republican House majority entirely predicated on unconstitutional maps. Republicans have the Speaker's gavel, all based on wins in districts that are not even legal. They've been able to stop legislation. They've been able to bring the U.S. to the brink of default. They've been able to waste millions of dollars on useless investigations when they shouldn't have had any of that power. And they knew that, but again, the goal was never fairness. It was doing whatever they could to usurp power for however long or short, because they know that even with a single congressional term's worth of power, they can still wreak the havoc they're looking to wreak, and that's exactly what they did. So when you see Republicans pushing blatantly unconstitutional schemes that will inevitably get overturned in court, recognize that they know that. But the short-term win means they can exercise that ill-gotten power, for however quickly it lasts, and use it to further undermine democracy. This is a party that has spent years, decades, beating its chest about how it cares about defending democracy, and yet no one is doing more to undermine it than the GOP. Those slogans might have made for nice bumper stickers, but their actions speak a hell of a lot louder than their words, and those actions show that it was never about democracy and always about power. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.